Hello everybody and welcome to your second tutorial on Unity. In this tutorial we're going to talk about the most basic features of Unity, which is game objects, right? So first of all, a game object, first of all let's talk about this world, this scene. I think I spoke about it in the last tutorial, but anyways, let me just go over it again. This is just basically an empty world, and you can put stuff in it. That's basically what a scene is. And now a game object is basically everything in Unity. Everything, every object, every terrain, camera, whatever you see in Unity, it's all game objects, alright? So basically game objects are what holds everything in Unity. So for example, if I want to make like a car racing game like Need for Speed, and I want to put a camera, not a camera, I want to put a car into my scene, then that car will be actually a game object that holds a car and holds a car script. So that's kind of how it works. So for another example, let's look at this game object that they give you here with the scene. It's called a camera. It's actually called main camera, but I renamed it. What you see here, the list here, right here with all these little icons. This is all the scripts that are attached to the game object, right? So this is like the game object. This is all the scripts that are attached to it. Now, the first thing we see is a transform. These are all the objects, excuse me. First thing we see is a transform. This is the first thing that will come with your game object whenever you create a new one. It will be on every game object. It's like a must for game object because it holds its position in the world, its rotation, and its scale. So basically, without the transform, the game object is practically non-existent. So this will always be on every game object. Now, second of all, you see this camera script, which is the script that draws all these lines here and sees everything. See, it even gives you a preview, and it gives you a nice icon on your game object, which rotates towards it. Anyways, so everything, all these things are done by the camera script that are attached to the camera game object. So without this camera script, this game object is basically useless. It's just a holder, you know. So this is actually a game object that contains a camera. And then you see we have more stuff here like GUI layer, flare layer, audio listener. I don't really know what these scripts do. I just know what camera does. I think these are like for the camera. Anyways, so now that we have a clear understanding of what a game object is, let me demonstrate. Right. So first of all, let's look at all this menu right here, the game object menu. You have this first option called create empty, which is just basically an empty game object with a transform on it, right? Of course, transform. And then second in menu you have create other, and you have all these game objects here, all these options here. Now these options basically they're prefabs that Unity created. Prefabs are game objects saved to files that you can like layer, drag, and drop in your scene, just like I did in the previous one. So all these game objects are prefabs that Unity already made for you, and their names pretty much explain what they are, right? So let's look at this first one, cube. This is just a regular Unity generated cube, and whenever you get a new unfamiliar game object, always look at its components, right? So say we're not familiar with the cube, let's look at its components, basically the scripts that are attached to it. So first one we see is transform, of course. Let's just skip that one. We see a mesh filter, we see a box collider, and you see if we toggle that on, we can't see. If you see the green outlines, and then when I toggle this off, you don't see the green outlines. It's because the box collider, it's the one that draws these green lines, which means where they collide. Anyways, moving on, we see a mesh renderer. Now, if we actually uncheck each of these components, it will actually take effect on the game object. Alright, so let's uncheck mesh render and see what happens. Bam, the cube is not rendered because we unchecked the mesh render component, meaning this component is not active and it will not compile or run. So check that back on, and let's make first of all a platform, right? Because I want to show you more components, more scripts that you can put on your game object. So let's resize that. We can resize it here like that. Let's make that small, and we can also resize it to the transform I want to make the Z is bigger, so I want to make the X 10 also. Set that to 0.1. Actually, it's at 0.5. And make this 10. Alright, so now we got this nice little platform. Let's check if the camera can see it. Open this camera so you can see what the preview is. And there you go. Now we want to add a light to our scene just like we did previously. Create other light. Now here we have a transform on this light game object, and we have a light script on this light game object. Alright, so now we drag it, and the light is not casted by the game object. Remember, it is casted by the component. Game object just holds it. So let's look at our camera. Everything is looking nice. Now let's make another cube and add to it a component called rigid body, which is basically, it gives it the properties of a real life physical object. Meaning, if you hit it, it will move. If you push it, it will move. If it's in midair, it will fall down. If it's near explosion, it will blow away. All the properties of a real life cube. If this cube was actually like a game cube or anything, it will have the same properties. So this component is in the components menu, physics menu, and then you click rigid body. And that's also how you add components. If you have them custom components here, you can drag them, drop them here, or you can get them from the components menu. Anyways, let's see what happens once we play the game. You see the cube falls down. Great. Let's duplicate this game object. Make a couple of falling cubes. Just, quick simulation. And here you go. And it's that easy to use Unity. It's that easy to make dynamic things. Let's uncheck the point light and delete it. So now that we have all that clear, the whole thing about game objects and scripts, I'll end this tutorial and keep a lookout for the next one. Bye bye.